The morning sun was rising over Seoul when Tae-min woke up from a dream he could not remember. He was 40 years old now, and his body reminded him of this every morning, with small aches and pains. His hair had started turning gray at the sides, and his face had lines that told stories of worry and wonder. He lived alone in a small apartment on the 20th floor of an old building. The apartment was simple: a bed, a kitchen, a bathroom, and a living room with a big window that showed the city below. Seoul had changed so much in 20 years. Flying cars moved between buildings that touched the clouds. Holographic signs floated in the air, advertising things in languages from different planets. Earth was part of the galaxy now, but only as a small player, a young species still learning its place among the stars. Tae-min made his coffee the old way, with hot water and a filter. He did not like the instant machines that everyone used now. Some things were better when done slowly. He stood by his window, watching the city wake up, and his mind went back to the past. As it often did on quiet mornings like this. 20 years ago, he had been just a boy. 17 years old, working night shifts at his father's small convenience store on the edge of the city. The store was nothing special. It sold snacks, drinks, cigarettes, and small things that people needed at odd hours. His father had built it from nothing after the hard years, and Tae-min had promised to help keep it running. That night, the night that changed everything, had started like any other. Tae-min was sitting behind the counter, reading a comic book, when he heard the sound. It was not like thunder or an explosion. It was more like the sky itself was tearing apart. He ran outside and saw a trail of fire crossing the night, heading toward the rice fields behind the store. He should have called someone. The police, the military, anyone. But something made him run toward the crash, instead of away from it. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the strange feeling in his chest that told him someone needed help. The ship was small, barely bigger than a car. It was made of something that looked like silver water, constantly moving and shifting. Smoke rose from its surface, and strange lights flickered inside it. Tae-min approached slowly, his heart beating so hard he could hear it in his ears. The door opened, and she fell out. She was not human. That was clear from the first moment. Her skin had a soft glow, like moonlight was trapped under her surface. Her eyes were too large, too deep, filled with colors that did not exist in the human world. She had no hair, but something like thin threads of light floated around her head. She was injured. Blue liquid, her blood, was coming from a wound on her side. She looked at Tae-min, and he saw fear in her alien eyes. The same fear he had seen in wounded animals, in lost children. She expected him to hurt her. She expected him to run. Instead, Tae-min took off his jacket and pressed it against her wound. "It's okay," he said, even though he knew she probably could not understand him. "I'm going to help you." That was how it began. Tae-min shook his head, pushing the memories away. He finished his coffee and got ready for work. He still ran the convenience store, though it had moved to a bigger location and sold many more things now. Some habits were hard to break. He was putting on his shoes when his television suddenly turned on by itself. This was not unusual. The news networks had emergency access to all screens now, ever since Earth had joined the galactic community. But what Tae-min saw made him freeze. A ship was descending through Earth's atmosphere. Not just any ship. A Thessian diplomatic vessel. The most beautiful kind of spacecraft in the known galaxy. The news reporter was speaking quickly, her voice filled with excitement and confusion. "We are receiving reports that the vessel is broadcasting a message on all frequencies. The ship has not attacked and has passed through our defense network without triggering any alarms. Officials are saying the message is addressed to..." This cannot be correct. The message is addressed to a private citizen. Tae-min's phone began to ring. Then his door began to shake with heavy knocking. But he could not move. He could only stare at the screen as the reporter continued. The message states, Ambassador Vela of the Thessian Collective requests permission to land. She is seeking audience with a human named Tae-min, resident of Seoul, Korea. His coffee cup fell from his hand and shattered on the floor. It was her. After all these years, she had come back. The knocking on his door grew louder. He heard voices shouting his name, demanding he open up. But Tae-min stood frozen, his mind racing through memories of those 3 months when he had hidden an alien girl in the storage room of his father's store. He remembered bringing her food, watching her taste ramyeon for the first time and declare it the best thing she had ever eaten. He remembered sitting with her in the dark, listening to her stories about worlds beyond the sky. He remembered teaching her about Earth, about his life, about his dreams. He remembered the night her people came for her. The way she had looked at him before she left, her strange eyes filled with an emotion he could not name. "I will come back for you, Earthboy," she had said. "I promise." He had not believed her. How could he? She was a being from the stars, an important person from an advanced civilization. He was just a teenager, working at a convenience store. Their meeting had been an accident, a strange moment in time that could not last. But she had remembered. She had come back. The door finally burst open, and soldiers flooded into his apartment. A woman in a dark suit stepped forward, her face serious and cold. She introduced herself as Director Ha-jun of the Earth Defense Authority. "Mr. Tae-min," she said, her voice sharp. "You need to come with us immediately. And you need to explain why an alien ambassador has traveled across the galaxy to find you." Tae-min looked at the director, then at the soldiers surrounding him, then at the television, where the beautiful ship was still descending toward Earth. 20 years of normal life. 20 years of trying to forget. And now, in one morning, everything had changed again. "It's a long story," he said quietly, "but I think it's time the world heard it." As they led him out of his apartment, Tae-min looked up at the sky, searching for the ship that carried his old friend. Somewhere up there, Vela was waiting for him, and whatever was coming next, he knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The military vehicles moved through the streets of Seoul at high speed. People stopped to watch as they passed, pointing at the convoy and whispering to each other. News drones flew overhead, trying to capture footage of the mysterious man who had drawn an alien ambassador across the stars. Tae-min sat in the back of an armored car, surrounded by soldiers who watched him with curious eyes. Director Ha-jun sat across from him, her tablet glowing as she read through files about his life. She had been reading for 10 minutes without saying a word. "Your father died 8 years ago," she finally said. "Your mother passed 5 years before that. You never married. No children. You inherited the family store and have been running it ever since. No criminal record, no unusual activity, no connection to any government or military organization." She looked up at him with eyes that were trying to understand something impossible. "So, tell me, Mr. Tae-min, how does a simple store owner become important enough for an alien ambassador to request him by name?" "Two Tae-min-nation. One to the crow. Two Tae-min-nation. Two Tae-min-nation. Two Tae-min-nation." Tae-min looked out the window at the passing city. "I told you. It's a long story. And eventing." Tae-min looked out the window. Tae-min looked out the window. "We have time." So Tae-min told her. He told her about the night the ship crashed in the rice fields. He told her about the fear in Vela's eyes when he first found her, and how that fear turned to confusion when he helped her instead of running away. He told her about carrying her to the storage room behind his father's store, about hiding her among the boxes of snacks and drinks, about treating her wounds with supplies meant for humans because he had nothing else. "She was scared," Tae-min said softly. "Her ship had broken down during a survey mission. She was a junior scout, barely an adult by her people's standards. She had crashed on a planet that her people knew almost nothing about, and she expected to die." Director Ha-jun leaned forward. "And you helped her?" Tae-min shrugged. "She needed help. That's all I knew. That's all that mattered." He continued his story. He told the director about the weeks that followed, about how Vela slowly healed and learned to trust him. He brought her food every day, and she became fascinated with human cuisine. Ramyeon was her favorite. She said the spices reminded her of something from her home world, a dish her mother used to make. They talked for hours every night. Vela's translation device was damaged, so they had to learn to communicate in other ways at first. Gestures, drawings, pointing at things, and saying their names. Slowly, the device began to repair itself, and their conversations grew deeper. Vela told him about the galaxy, about the thousands of species that lived among the stars, each with their own history and culture. She told him about the Thessians, her people, who had once been warriors but had chosen peace many generations ago. She told him about the Galactic Collective, the great alliance that governed interstellar affairs, and about the debates happening in their council about whether to contact Earth openly. Many people wanted to leave your world alone, Vela had said during one of their late-night talks. They said humans were too dangerous, too violent, too divided. They said you would destroy yourselves before you ever reached the stars. Maybe they're right, Taemin had replied. We do fight a lot. We hurt each other for stupid reasons. We're not perfect. Vela had looked at him with those strange, beautiful eyes. No species is perfect, Earthboy. But you are here, helping me, when you have every reason to fear me. That means something. That means maybe they are wrong about your kind. Director Ha-jun was silent as Taemin told this part of the story. The soldiers around them had stopped looking at their weapons and were listening with open interest. For 3 months, I kept her hidden, Taemin continued. My father was sick at the time, spending most of his days at the hospital. So it was just me and her, night after night, becoming friends across the distance of stars. And then? Director Ha-jun asked. And then her people came. Taemin remembered that night clearly. He had arrived at the store to find the air thick with a strange energy. The storage room door was open, and light was pouring out of it. Light that was not from any human source. He had run inside to find Vela standing before a holographic image of another Thessian. This one older, wearing the formal robes of authority. They had spoken in their own language, words that Taemin could not understand, but he could read the emotions on Vela's face. Relief, fear, sadness. When the hologram disappeared, she turned to him with tears in her eyes. My people have found me, she said. A ship is coming to take me home. That's good, Taemin had said, even though his heart was breaking. You'll be safe now. I don't want to leave. Vela's voice was small, vulnerable. I don't want to leave you. Earthboy, you have shown me more kindness in 3 months than I have known in my whole life. You have shown me what humanity truly is. I'm just one person. I'm not special. Vela had taken his hands in hers. Her skin was warm, warmer than human skin, and it seemed to glow brighter when she was emotional. That is where you are wrong. You are the most special person I have ever met. And I promise you, Taemin, I will come back. I will find a way to return to you. The rescue ship had arrived an hour later. Taemin had watched from the shadows as they took her away. She had looked back at him one last time before the door closed, and then she was gone, rising into the sky like a star returning to its home. That was 20 years ago. Director Ha-jun sat back in her seat. Her expression changed. The coldness was gone, replaced by something like wonder. You never told anyone? Not even after first contact was made? Who would have believed me? Taemin asked. And besides, it was our story. Mine and hers. It didn't belong to the world. The convoy was slowing down. Through the window, Taemin could see the military base ahead, and beyond it, the beautiful silver ship that had descended from the sky. His heart began to beat faster. The ambassador has refused to speak with anyone until she sees you, Director Ha-jun said. Whatever happened between you two, it seems she meant what she said. She never forgot. The vehicle stopped, and the doors opened. Sunlight flooded in, and Taemin stepped out onto the landing pad. The Thessian ship stood before him, larger than he remembered their vessels being, covered in flowing patterns that moved like water. A door opened in its side, and a figure appeared. She was dressed in formal robes now, carrying herself with the dignity of an ambassador. But when their eyes met across the distance, Taemin saw the same girl he had found in that rice field 20 years ago. Scared, hopeful, alive. "Earthboy," she said, and her voice carried across the silence like music. "I told you I would return." Taemin felt tears forming in his eyes. "I never stopped believing you would." They walked toward each other as the world watched. Two old friends reunited after too long apart, their story about to change everything. Taemin and Vela stood face to face on the landing pad, while cameras captured every moment. The world was watching. Every screen on every continent showed the image of a simple Korean man meeting an alien ambassador like they were old friends. Because they were. Vela reached out and touched his face gently. Her fingers were warm, and they left trails of soft light on his skin. "You have aged, Earthboy," she said softly. "Time has touched you." 20 years will do that to a human," Taemin replied with a small smile. "You look exactly the same. My people live longer than yours. 20 years is nothing to us." She paused, and sadness crossed her face. "But that does not mean I did not feel every day of separation. I have thought of you often, Taemin. More often than you could know." Director Hajun stepped forward, breaking the moment. "Ambassador Vela, we are honored by your visit. Perhaps we should continue this reunion in a more private setting?" Vela turned to face the director and the crowd of officials behind her. Her posture changed, becoming more formal, more powerful. She was a representative of one of the most important civilizations in the galaxy. "There will be time for private conversations later," Vela said. "But first, I must speak to your world. I have not come here only to see my friend. Though that was reason enough. I have come because Earth faces a decision that will shape its future for generations." The officials looked at each other with worry in their eyes. Vela continued. "For 20 years, the Galactic Collective has watched your planet from a distance. We gave you small gifts of technology. We allowed limited contact, but we never granted you full membership in our community. Many of my colleagues believe humans are not ready. They say your species is too young, too violent, too divided to join the greater family of worlds." She paused, letting her words sink in. "I have come to prove them wrong. I have nominated Earth for the trials of ascension, and I have come to serve as your advocate." The news spread across the planet within minutes. The trials of ascension. Most humans had never heard of them, but the name was enough to cause both hope and fear. Whatever these trials were, they would decide humanity's place among the stars. Over the next few days, more ships arrived. 12 in total, each carrying an ambassador from a different species in the Galactic Collective. They built a council chamber in orbit around Earth, a great ring of metal and light where the trials would take place, and they announced the rules. Humanity would face 3 tests. The trial of unity would test whether humans could work together across their many divisions. The trial of growth would test whether humans had learned from their dark past. And the trial of worth would test whether humans deserved a place among the stars. If Earth passed all 3 trials, it would become a full member of the Galactic Collective. If it failed even one, it would be left alone for another 100 years, isolated from the galaxy until it was ready to try again. Vela came to Taemin on the night before the first trial. They met in a small room in the government complex, away from the cameras and the officials. For a moment, they were not an ambassador and a witness. They were just 2 friends, sharing a meal of ramyeon, like they had done so many years ago. "I missed this," Vela said, holding the cup of noodles in her glowing hands. "I have tasted food from 1,000 worlds, but nothing compares to this." Taemin laughed. "It's just instant noodles. They cost almost nothing. That is what makes it special." Simple things, made with care, shared with friends. She set down the cup and looked at him seriously. Taemin, I need you to understand what is coming. The other ambassadors, they do not want Earth to pass these trials. They fear your species. They have watched your wars, your cruelty, your destruction of your own world. They believe you will bring chaos to the galaxy. Maybe they're right to fear us, Taemin said quietly. We have done terrible things. Are we have done terrible things. Every species has done terrible things, Vela replied. The Thessians once conquered worlds and destroyed civilizations. The Corvani starved billions of their own people through greed. The Helsing spread plagues across star systems before they learned better. Every species in that council has blood on their history. What matters is what they became afterward. She reached across the table and took his hand. That is why I chose you to speak for Earth. You showed me, 20 years ago, what humanity can be at its best. Not your weapons or your technology, but your heart. Your ability to care for a stranger. Your choice to help when you could have walked away. I'm not a leader or a diplomat, Taemin protested. I'm just a store owner. That is exactly why you must speak for your people. The council has heard from your politicians and your generals. They have read your history and studied your cultures, but they have never met a human like you, Taemin. They have never seen the simple goodness that exists in ordinary people. The first trial began the next morning. The council presented Earth with a simulation. Though the people of Earth did not know it was fake, they announced that an asteroid was heading toward the planet, large enough to end all life. The asteroid would strike in 1 week. Only by working together could humanity hope to survive. Taemin watched from the orbital chamber as Earth responded. It was not perfect. There was panic at first. Some leaders tried to hide the news. Some people turned to violence and selfishness. But then something else happened. Communities came together. Scientists shared their research freely. Countries that had been enemies for generations offered help to each other. In Korea, the old divisions between North and South seemed to disappear overnight as people worked side by side. Factories that had made weapons began making parts for space defenses. Money that had been hoarded was given freely to those in need. In 1 week, humanity built a defense network that should have taken years. They launched ships and missiles. They created shields and barriers. They worked as one people, one species, one family, facing a common threat. When the council revealed that the asteroid was not real, many humans were angry at being tricked. But the ambassadors were silent, looking at each other with expressions that Taemin could not read. They passed the first trial. Vela whispered to him, her eyes bright with hope. They showed they can unite when it matters most. But the second trial was coming. And Taemin knew that facing humanity's past would be far harder than facing any asteroid. The council chamber floated in the darkness of space, a ring of light surrounding the blue and green marble of Earth. Inside, the 12 ambassadors sat in their elevated seats, watching as Taemin walked to the center of the chamber. He felt incredibly small. The weight of 8 billion souls rested on his shoulders. The second trial had been announced that morning. The trial of growth. The council would examine humanity's history, every dark chapter laid bare, and ask a single question. Why should we believe you have changed? A holographic display appeared around Taemin, showing images that made his heart ache. Wars, so many wars. Fields covered with bodies, cities burning, children crying. The images moved through history, from ancient times to modern days, showing the endless cycle of human violence. Then came other images. Forests turned to deserts, oceans filled with poison, animals disappearing forever, smoke rising from factories, while the planet grew hotter and hotter. Humanity had not only hurt each other, they had hurt their own home. And then the worst images. People in chains, people in cages, people being killed for the color of their skin, for their beliefs, for simply being different. The genocides, the ethnic cleansings, the long history of humans treating other humans as less than human. When the images finally stopped, the chamber was silent. Tae-min stood in the darkness, feeling the judgment of 12 alien species upon him. How could he answer this? How could anyone answer this? The lead ambassador, a being called Korvax from a species of tall, thin creatures with skin like polished stone, spoke first. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. Human representative, we have shown you the truth of your species. Your history is written in blood and suffering. Your world is scarred by your greed and hatred. Your people have caused more pain to each other than any species we have encountered. Tell us, why should we welcome you into our community? Why should we trust that you will not bring your darkness to the stars? Tae-min looked up at the assembly of alien beings. He thought of all the things he could say. The excuses, the justifications, the promises that things would be different, but he knew that would not be enough. So instead, he told them the truth. I cannot deny what you have shown, Tae-min began, his voice steady despite his fear. Everything in those images is real. My species has done terrible things. We have hurt each other in ways that shame us all. And I will not stand here and pretend that we are better than we are. The ambassadors watched him with unreadable expressions. Tae-min continued, but I want to tell you a different story. Not the story of our darkness, but the story of our light. Because both are true. Both are part of who we are. He took a deep breath. 20 years ago, I was a teenager working at my father's small store. One night, a ship crashed near my home, and inside that ship was a frightened alien girl who was injured and alone. I had never seen anything like her. I did not know if she was dangerous. I did not know if helping her would put my own life at risk. Tae-min looked at Vela, who sat among the ambassadors with tears in her eyes. But I helped her anyway. Not because I was brave or special, but because she needed help, and I could give it. That was the only thing that mattered to me. Man, he turned back to face the council. That is the other truth of humanity. Yes, we can be cruel. Yes, we can be violent and selfish and destructive. But we can also be kind. We can also choose compassion over fear, generosity over greed, love over hatred. Every day, in small ways and large ways, humans make that choice. The holographic display around him changed. Now it showed different images. A stranger helping another stranger in a flood. Doctors traveling to poor countries to heal the sick. People building homes for those who had lost everything. Teachers staying late to help struggling students. Neighbors sharing food. When times were hard, we teach our children about our dark history, Tae-min said. Not to make them feel guilty, but to help them choose differently. Every generation, we try to be a little better than the ones who came before. We do not always succeed, but we never stop trying. He paused, gathering his courage for what he needed to say next. You ask why you should trust us. I cannot give you a guarantee. I cannot promise that we will never make mistakes again. But I can tell you this. The capacity for goodness in humans is just as real as our capacity for evil. And if you give us a chance, if you let us join your community and learn from you, we will prove that we are more than our worst moments. Ambassador Korvax leaned forward. Pretty words, human. But words are easy. What evidence do you offer that your species has truly changed? Tae-min thought for a moment. 20 years ago, when Vela crashed on Earth, humanity knew almost nothing about the galaxy. We were isolated, afraid, uncertain of our place in the universe. If an alien had landed publicly in those days, there would have been panic, violence, maybe war. He gestured to the window, where Earth floated peacefully below. But when Vela returned this week, when her ship descended through our atmosphere, what happened? No one attacked. No one panicked. Instead, the whole world held its breath with hope. People from every nation, every culture, every religion, watched and hoped that this visitor came in peace. In 20 years, we have changed more than you might think. We have started healing our planet. We have created new forms of cooperation between nations. We have begun to see ourselves not as separate tribes, but as one species, sharing one home. We still have far to go, but we are moving in the right direction. The council chamber was silent. The ambassadors looked at each other, communicating in ways that Tae-min could not understand. Finally, Ambassador Korvax spoke again. "We will consider your words, human. The council will debate and reach a decision on the second trial." Tae-min was escorted out of the chamber. In the waiting area, Vela came to him immediately, taking his hands in hers. "You spoke well, Earthboy," she said softly. "You spoke from your heart, and they heard you." "No. Will it be enough?" Tae-min asked. Vela looked uncertain. "I do not know. The council is divided. Some were moved by your words. Others remain skeptical. The final trial will decide everything." "What is the final trial?" Vela's expression grew serious. "The trial of worth. But that trial is different. It is not something that can be prepared for or argued. It is something that must be witnessed." "And what does that mean?" Before Vela could answer, the doors to the council chamber opened. Ambassador Korvax emerged, his stone face unreadable. "The council has reached a decision on the second trial," he announced. "Humanity has passed. Your representative spoke truthfully of your flaws and your strengths. We accept that your species has the capacity for growth." Relief flooded through Tae-min. But Korvax was not finished. "However, the third trial begins now, and for this trial, human representative, you will not speak. You will only show us who you truly are." Tae-min felt fear creeping back into his heart. He did not know what was coming, but he knew that everything he had fought for hung in the balance. The final trial had begun. The council chamber grew dark. The 12 ambassadors sat in silence as a strange energy filled the room. Tae-min stood in the center, not understanding what was happening. The floor beneath his feet began to glow, and suddenly he was not in the chamber anymore. He was standing in his father's old convenience store. The store looked exactly as it had 20 years ago. The same shelves, the same products, the same flickering light in the corner that his father had never fixed. Tae-min looked around in confusion. Was this a dream? A simulation? A voice echoed in the darkness outside the store windows. It was Ambassador Korvax, speaking from somewhere beyond this created world. "The trial of worth is simple, human. We will present you with a choice. The same choice you made 20 years ago. But this time, the situation will be different. This time, there will be consequences." The door of the store opened, and Vela stumbled in. But this was not the Vela he knew. This was the young Vela from 20 years ago, injured and scared. Blue blood dripping from her side, she fell to the floor and looked up at him with fear in her eyes. "Please," she whispered. "Please help me." Tae-min's heart ached. He wanted to run to her, to help her as he had done before. But before he could move, another figure appeared in the doorway. His father, who had died 8 years ago. His father, who looked healthy and strong as he had been before the sickness took him. He was holding a phone, his face pale with shock. "Tae-min," his father said, "the military is on their way. They know about the crash. They're offering a reward for information. If we report this creature, they'll pay us enough money to save the store, to pay for my treatments. We'll never have to struggle again." Tae-min looked between his father and Vela. He understood now. This was the trial. The council wanted to see what he would choose when helping the stranger meant hurting himself and those he loved. "This isn't real," Tae-min said. "My father is dead. This is just a test. Does it matter?" Korvax's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. The choice is still yours. Every day, humans face choices like this. Help the stranger and suffer, or protect yourself and let others suffer. What will you choose? Human, when there is a cost to your kindness. Taemin looked at the image of his father. Tears formed in his eyes. Even knowing this was not real, seeing his father alive again was almost too much to bear. The offer was tempting. In this fake world, he could have everything he had lost. His father's health. The family business, thriving. A life without struggle. All he had to do was turn away from someone who needed help. My father taught me something, Taemin said slowly. He taught me that the measure of a person is not what they do when it's easy. It's what they do when it's hard. He walked past the image of his father and knelt beside Vela. He took off his jacket and pressed it against her wound, just as he had done 20 years ago. My father would never have asked me to leave someone to die, Taemin continued. Not for money. Not for anything. The man standing in that doorway is not my father. My father would have helped her himself. The image of his father smiled. And for a moment, Taemin saw something else in his eyes. Not disappointment. Pride. You have always made me proud, my son, the image said. And then, it faded away. The convenience store dissolved around them. Taemin found himself back in the council chamber, kneeling on the floor. The real Vela was beside him, holding his hand, tears streaming down her glowing face. The ambassadors were silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, they began to speak. He chose compassion over profit, said one ambassador. He held to his values even when tested, said another. He understood that true kindness requires sacrifice, said a third. Ambassador Korvax rose from his seat. His stone face was still unreadable, but his voice had changed. There was something like respect in it. The council has reached its decision. Humanity has passed the trial of worth. A sound rose up from somewhere below them. At first, Taemin did not understand what it was. Then he realized. It was cheering. The people of Earth, watching from below, were celebrating. The news had spread across the planet in seconds. They had passed. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. But Korvax raised his hand for silence. However, the vote for full membership requires one more thing. The testimony of the advocate. All eyes turned to Vela. She stood slowly, still holding Taemin's hand, and faced the council. 20 years ago, she began. I crashed on a world I did not know. I was young and scared. I expected to die alone, on a primitive planet, far from everyone I loved. She squeezed Taemin's hand. Instead, I found something I never expected. I found a boy who had every reason to fear me, to hate me, to leave me to die. But he didn't. He risked everything to save a stranger from the stars. Vela turned to face the ambassadors directly. I have traveled to many worlds since then. I have met beings of incredible power and ancient wisdom, but I have never met anyone who showed me such pure kindness as this human did. You have asked whether humanity is ready to join us. I say they have been ready all along. Their capacity for compassion, for hope, for choosing love over fear, this is what makes them worthy, not their technology. She looked back at Taemin, and her eyes held the same emotion they had held on that last night 20 years ago. I never forgot you, Earthboy. I never forgot what you taught me about what humanity truly is. And now, I hope the council will see what I have always seen. The vote was taken. It was unanimous. Earth was granted full membership in the Galactic Collective. Later, after the celebrations had begun, after the speeches and the ceremonies and the endless interviews, Taemin and Vela found a quiet moment, alone. They stood at the window of the orbital station, looking down at the beautiful blue planet below. What happens now? Taemin asked. Everything changes, Vela said. Your world will have access to technology beyond your dreams. Your people will travel to other stars, meet other species, build things you cannot imagine. The age of humanity among the stars has begun. Taemin nodded, but he was not thinking about the future of his species. He was thinking about the past. About a scared girl in a storage room. About ramyeon, shared in the dark. About a promise made and kept across 20 years and countless light years. Will you stay? He asked quietly. Vela turned to face him. Her eyes glowed with that familiar warmth. I have duties to my people. I cannot stay forever, but I will visit. Often. She smiled, the same smile that had first made him believe in beings from other worlds. Besides, you still owe me the rest of that drama we were watching. I have been wondering for 20 years how it ended. Taemin laughed. It felt good to laugh. It's actually quite sad. The time-traveling doctor never finds his way home. Then we should watch it together, Vela said. Sad stories are easier to bear when you share them with a friend. They stood together in the starlight, an alien ambassador and a convenience store owner, two beings from different worlds who had found each other against all odds. Below them, Earth celebrated its new future. Around them, the galaxy waited with open arms, and in that moment, Taemin understood something important. The trials had tested whether humanity was worthy of the stars. But the truth was simpler than that. Kindness, compassion, the choice to help a stranger in need. These were not weaknesses. These were the greatest strengths any species could have. He had shown a frightened alien girl kindness 20 years ago, never expecting anything in return. And that small act had changed the fate of his entire world. As they watched the sun rise over Earth, painting the clouds in shades of gold and pink, Taemin felt hope filling his heart. The age of humanity among the stars had begun, and it had started with the simplest thing of all. A boy who chose to help, a girl who never forgot, and a friendship that bridged the distance between worlds.